Hey guys, this is Manga here with a new video, and in this video I'm going to be giving you guys 10 tips drawing anime references exactly. And this is a special video because we're going to be joined by Jolly Arts. I highly recommend you guys check out Jolly. He does a lot of cool videos, a lot of cool fun art videos. Most of them are fan art videos where he's drawing popular characters and is showing you guys how to draw those characters. I think he makes very good videos, and not all the art is like anime art as well. He has some realistic drawing videos as well, so I think you guys can also learn a lot from him and learn a lot watching him, almost like an observational tutorial kind of way, and seeing how he draws popular characters with reference, not just anime but realistic drawings. He has one on Deadpool, Pennywise, and for the anime ones he has Naruto's and Attack on Titan, Sasuke's, all those kind of art, and I highly recommend you guys check him out. I'll leave a link to his channel in the YouTube cards in this video, as well as in the description. Some of you may know Jolly as Scan2 Drawing. He changed his name because his middle name is actually Jolly, and I believe he's part Nigerian as well, same as me, so that was cool. Jolly and I decided to do a collaboration, and in this collaboration here I'm going to be showing you guys how, and also giving my tips on how I draw from reference, especially anime characters. And here we decided to go with Meliodas from 7 Deadly Sins. I think this is on Netflix if you guys are interested in checking that out. I think it has some really cool action scenes. It's a shonen series that you guys can watch and have fun, same as all the other mainstream shonen titles. But we decided to go with Meliodas here, and I'm going to do the line art for it, and he's going to color it on his channel. So I'll also leave a link to where you can watch his video of him coloring it on his channel. But in the meantime, while I do my part, I will also be giving you guys 10 tips on how to draw anime characters from reference and having it look damn close, like 99%. So it's never going to be 100%. Not if the creator wanted to draw his own work, it's still not going to be 100%. So it's always going to be like really, really close in the high 90s. But here I'm just going to show you guys a way to do it exactly. But by exactly, I mean like really accurate in the 90s of percentages. So before we dive into the tips, I really appreciate it if you guys hit subscribe and hit that bell so you stay notified each time I upload absolutely anything. So let's get into it. Get a mental note. What I mean by this is, especially if you are a creator who has an established style, sometimes when you're drawing from reference, your own style kind of seeps into it. So you need to take note of the differences between the style you're copying and the style you already have, and make sure you don't like make moves that you would make versus what the original creator would make. So you need to take note of the style, and that might include that creator having a very different look on body proportions. So here you see with Meliodas, in like the anatomy of the character is for the most part accurate to regular human beings, but there are certain things that are accentuated and things that are not as realistic. So for instance, his head size is really bigger, it's much bigger than it should be when you compare it to like his palm or his feet. So you need to take note of things like that. You take note of the art style, you take note of everything, how the creator draws, all those things, and you take note of the character's iconography. So you have that in mind when you're drawing your own version. You're also taking note of not just the style, but what the character is wearing. Is just like a good quick summary of the character, and taking note of things that stand out to you and keeping them at the back of your mind, so that when you're drawing the original work or drawing your version based off of that reference, you are on a good track. And in that mental note, you're taking note of everything as much as you can, to the point where maybe you'd be able to draw the character even without the reference after that first glance, or that first couple glances where you have a full mental note of all you need. Tip 2 would be to put yourself in the shoes of that artist and try to behave as that artist would. Whatever you feel that artist would, feel like putting that drawing together. Try to go through the steps that you feel that the original artist took to get the complete drawing done, and try to recreate that however best you can. It's never going to be 100%, but just do your best. So for instance here, if you saw my initial sketch, I went with like a mannequin like I always do, and to a degree you can also think of it as me trying to form a silhouette of the character, just like a silhouette of the character, maybe naked to a degree, or naked and bald. You can think of this mannequin sketch as a blueprint, as something you can build on to get to the final sketch of this drawing. And here you're getting that mannequin shape of, like I said, the naked form of the character, bald, so you're not focusing on too many details. You just want to get the body proportions right, you want to get the pose right, and this allows you to focus on just the pose and the body proportions without thinking about all the other stuff that can complicate things. So you're not thinking about the hair, you're not thinking about the hairstyle, you're not thinking about what the character is wearing, shoes, hand. You're just focused on getting the pose and getting the body proportions right. Same way I would do if I was doing my own drawing, even without reference, maybe drawing my own characters from my series, but that would be in my style. So again, you're taking pieces from that mental note from the previous tip and applying it here, but now you're just focusing on the basics as you assume that the original creator would take, and you're just focusing on the basic things like the mannequin. And then when you have it right and you're looking back and forth, basing it off the reference, of course, you can then be adding things step by step. So think in layers as well. So here, once you're done with that mannequin, you know how the body proportions are right, the pose is right, then okay, now you can put his hairstyle. Now you can put, and just focus on that, focus on the hair, and then you can go into clothes and you're looking, and you're just keeping track of everything. You want to be loose, you don't want to be too on the nose with everything, unless, you know, sometimes just being loose and keep making the eraser your friend, and that's another tip we'll get to. But just being loose, being as accurate as you can, but thinking of everything in layers and focusing on things step by step. The third tip would be to keep the drawing, keep the reference close to you. You want to have a good view of the drawing. That way, whatever your site situation is, just make sure the drawing, the reference is close enough to you to where you can see everything clearly. Like you don't want the drawing to be far away from your eyes. You want it to be close enough to where you can see it clearly, so you're copying the drawing as accurate as possible. The fourth tip would be to let loose, relax, know what you want, right? So when you're copying this drawing, do you want it to be as accurate as possible, or do you want it to be just accurate enough, or do you want it to just pass as something you can fool other people with and say that the original creator made, or you want it to just be an exact drawing? You need to know what you want. You need to know how accurate you want to be. So for instance, if you were drawing Naruto and you were drawing his hairstyle, and you know it has the spiky blonde hair, do you want to draw each like blade of the hair, as many as the reference, or do you just want to draw a blonde spiky hair in that style? I think those are two different things. You want to copy exactly what you're seeing, or you just want to draw the same thing, not caring how accurate it is. So hopefully you understood that. I believe doing that will give you a good sense of what you want to achieve from the copy, from your version. And note that even if you want to aim for 100%, which you can, it's never going to be 100%. You can get like 99, hell, maybe 99.5. I don't know how good you guys can be, or you guys are. I don't want to put a limit to your potential, but you can, like 100%. That's, I don't think it's possible. That's me. That's, you know, that's just me. But you can always aim for something that's damn near close to 100%. So in this drawing, in my version for what I'm about to create, I think maybe it was in like the 95%. I wasn't too bent on making it 100% exact, but I wanted it to be in the high 90s, and I think I accomplished that. Now the fifth tip will be to actually take a step back and look at the drawing, review the drawing, find the errors, right? And, you know, kind of use your eyes to measure. I highly recommend you guys train your eyes to be able to measure distances, lengths, and, you know, the thickness of a line variation, and stuff like that. But here we're focusing on where things are actually placed. So we look over here and we look at the height of this shoulder. Or we look at, okay, yeah, let's look at the height of the shoulder. We go there, and we know that maybe because of this little brown satchel, whatever, it's not a satchel, but like a belt that goes across this torso, the height of it is clearly taller than, say, over here, where the where his shoulder ends. And if you do the same thing here, that also happens. but maybe the distance between is a little too much. Here, with the reference is shorter, but here is much longer. And those are things that, you know, you think of, and even though I have it inked, I can still go in digitally and fix things here and there. But in the initial sketch, those are things you watch out for. So here is longer, as you can see, just by using your eyes to gauge, that is longer than that, especially because this drawing, we're also looking at it from a distance. And so those are things you kind of watch out for. And so with the coordinates, it's almost like you're looking at it on an X and Y axis and just going off of that. So another example would be where the line here, this dot, where it actually meets the belt. Over here, it meets it at the metal. And here, it meets it at the end of the metal. So if you just erase that, it meets it there. So those points where things meet, you can just go off of them and just like find one and then go, what are the characteristics of it? What are the things that stand out about it? And just stick with it. Another one would be, say this, at this point, if you do like the X, Y for it, this is, I believe, Y, and that's X. And if you look at that, so tilted, if you look at that, it's taller than the handle for this sword. Right, this is the top of it, and it's taller. But on mine, not so much. And those are the things you look at. You're looking at something, and to know whether it works, you're comparing it to the rest of the drawing to figure out what's wrong with it. If the length is too short, if it's too tall, if it's taller than something else. If it's taller than something that it shouldn't be taller than based off of the reference, then you clearly need to make some adjustments. Also with this technique, you are doing things like counting. So for instance, and it depends on how accurate you want to be, but say there were actually 3 circly things on his belt, then you want to make sure you have 3. So you are literally counting, and then you're making sure you have the same amount of amount of circles on your drawing. So here it's actually 2, so we don't have to worry about that. It's actually just 2, easy to remember. And sometimes when it's so many, again, it depends on how accurate you want to be. If you're drawing something with like 1,000,000 wings, you can either draw 1,000,000 wings, or you can, you know, draw many wings to where it still looks like it's the same thing. Or if the artist was freestyling the amount of spikes, say a character has on their hair, and you wanted to draw it like, and let's say it was so spiky. If you want to redraw it, then you can try and draw it exactly the same, or you can just freestyle it because that's what the artist was doing in the first place. So that comes back into some of the previous steps of putting yourself in the shoes of the artist. Do you want to draw every spike in Naruto's head, or you just want to draw a blonde spiky hair? Up to you. So that's what I mean by the point. You're figuring stuff out. You look at this over here. The one on the left is shorter than the one on the right. Let's call it A. And this is B. A is shorter than B in mine. But in the original, they're pretty even. They're pretty even. You look at this. Again, it's pretty even over here, but still pretty even here. But like this foot is much lower. So the foot on the right is much lower than the one on the left. And this is partly because on the paper I was drawing on was finishing, so I was starting to squeeze things. So my drawing isn't going to be, I wasn't aiming for 100%, but I was definitely aiming for a percentage really high up. And that's what I mean by point. You find one point and you look at all the characteristics associated with it, and you want to make sure on that same point on the other drawing, everything is accurate. So example, here, if you look at the line of his hair over here, it overlaps with one of the hilts of the sword. And over here, it kind of just hits the tip. So we want to make sure that it goes across, right? Those are things you look at. Now this goes across, the second one goes across, and it does go across. Maybe not exactly, but you know, that's a good sign that at least you're on the right track. We have things where this line connects to the collar of the shirt. It does it again here with a slight overlap, and another one that goes in. So we're looking at those lines, and we're just making sure that it's doing, like, the corresponding lines are doing exactly the same thing. And that's basically that's the basic focus of what we're trying to accomplish with this. We just want the lines where they connect, if they connect accordingly. So we have this, we know that this part of the jacket on the original hits the metal. You would have also spotted this with looking for the points, the coordinates and things like that. But you can also use it with the lines. So here the line, it doesn't hit it. So this line is actually supposed to go here. So this is the wrong and this is right. So that's where you make an adjustment. And in the penciling phase, if you spot that early on, you can make that correction, right? Obviously, these are like obvious mistakes. So one of the obvious things is to correct mistakes. Here, I'm going to make some changes digitally, and you'll see what I do with that. But we're here right now, we're just focusing on the lines and what they connect with and making sure it corresponds. And we're also looking at how they work, what are the characteristics. Here, there's more of a bump and less so here. So really, we wanted more of a bump for that to be correct. You know, you need to do more than that, right? Also, I could find another one. I think that this weird anime hair thing is much taller than what we have over here. But, you know, it's not that big a deal, I guess. But here we have a line that goes across. The line doesn't go across here. And you're just looking at that, and sometimes it helps the overall drawing to be more accurate when you're just following and paying attention to everything that the lines are doing and what they're connected to. So, for instance, the line here and what it hits here, it hits his torso, and it hits like this part of the drawing where it makes a contour. And here, see, the contour happens earlier. So really, this line should have gone like this versus what's actually happening. So it's supposed to go like that, or the contour is supposed to come lower. One of them has got to make room for the other. So we're using these lines to figure out the rest of the drawing. So you see this line and how it interacts with this line. So you're picking lines and figuring out how they interact with others, or what are the things you can remember when you remember them with others. You look at this, and it's kind of pointing to the middle of this line. But over here, the line looks like it's pointing. It's not even, if you keep drawing a straight line, it doesn't come across this line at all. So there's going to, if you keep drawing, there's going to be an overlap. But here, it goes off screen. So what's supposed to happen is that this line is supposed to do something like that. And based off of this, it maybe should be even higher. And you kind of just do that, get a line, look at how it interacts with all the other lines, and what they do, where they meet, how thick they are, where they bend, if they hit a contour, and stuff like that. And you just scan your drawing, compare it to the reference, and find all these errors. And in time, you will make the corrections. One is to, again, the same thing, you step back and review, but now we're not looking for points or looking more for the lines. Now we're kind of like just looking at proportions, especially if you have a vastly different drawing style versus what you're actually copying. And for me, my proportions are not that off. I'm not too stylistic with them. I am stylistic with it a little bit, but it's still very close to traditional regular anatomy, unless the character isn't human or anything like that. So here we have a character whose feet are really small, his palms are really small, but his head is relatively big, right? And for what I have, I don't think the head is big enough. And another indicator of that is when you during this review, like the previous steps, you figure out things like you notice it when you look at the height of the head and how it's taller than the hilt is taller than the tip of where the hilt of the sword ends. But here it's not. So clearly this head is either positioned higher or is bigger. And I believe it's bigger just when I compare it to the rest of the drawing. Like, you compare again the proportions, the size of his head, and you look at the hand, like it's really small. But here, there's the size of his head, and even though the hand is covered here, you compare this, it's not, it doesn't translate to this. Because the head here is much bigger than the hand versus the head here.
The 8th tip would be to take a step back every once in a while and compare what you currently have to the reference and start finding those errors and make sure that you're correcting them and you're not making more as you go ahead. Like, step back even before the drawing is done and compare. So you can almost call it proof looking, right? The same way you proofread a paper, proof look. And if you need an extra set of eyes, then do that. Because one thing that's always going to help you improve as an artist, regardless of whether you're copying from reference or not, is to be able to identify your errors by yourself and maybe accepting criticism or any critiques from other people. But being able to do it by yourself and adjust accordingly is a great addition to your tool set, your skill set. The 9th tip I have would be to repeat stuff like this. Sometimes it might be good to redraw the same drawing. So having 2 versions of the same thing. You're attempting to draw the same thing twice with the same reference and kind of like trying to be better each time. If you made mistakes, you identified the mistakes in the previous your previous attempt, then make sure that you're not making the same ones while you're moving forward. Repetition is a big deal when you're trying to improve, and I think this will help you guys a lot in like reaching the goals that you're trying to achieve, you know, copying work, coming up with your own stuff. Repetition in art, and mostly almost anything, is going to improve you greatly. A little mini tip would be to maybe time yourself the next time, because if you can also be faster but, you know, achieve the same quality of work, that's also a good thing to have. Being able to speed up. It's not necessary in the beginning when you're still learning, but it's also a good tool to have. And the last tip I have for you guys, which is something I mentioned earlier briefly, is to not be afraid of the eraser. Don't be afraid of making mistakes, because you will make them, especially if you're starting early on. But just try your best to identify your errors by yourself or with help. You know, and with time and repetition, you should be able to identify those mistakes by yourself as time goes on. You should be able to identify identify where you struggle when you're creating art, and just work accordingly to make sure you don't make those same errors moving forward and improving in your work. So during this sketch phase, when you're sketching, before you do any final work on it with ink or Copic markers, or you scan it in and work with it digitally. Although digitally you can always change things here and there, as you can see I'm doing on the screen, or will do on the screen. Don't be afraid to correct your mistakes. Use the eraser as much as you need, as much as necessary, to make sure it's as accurate as possible. Again, during that phase where you step back and you're comparing or looking for errors, don't be afraid to make mistakes. So I see people when they're sketching, they're very slow because they're so afraid of it. Just be free. Just be free and erase as much as you want. When you feel you have it, then you can make the lines a little more permanent or go over it with ink. So, those are the 10 tips I have for you guys. Don't forget to check out the colored version of this Meliodas drawing on Jolly's channel. You can go to Jolly's channel and subscribe. Again, I'll leave links in the YouTube cards as well as the description of this video. Don't forget to watch other videos I've created. I made all sorts of videos. Fun videos, tutorials, check out the series that I have on this channel. If you're new to this channel, I'm White Manga, the creator of Apple Black. You can read the first 4 chapters of Apple Black or purchase Volume 1 and Volume 2, published and serialized on Saturday AM, or check out Bakasi, which will be coming out on Saturday PM. All links you could possibly need, including my social media, will be in the description below. If you want to learn from other veterans in the industry and learn techniques, art techniques on how to use certain tools and things like that, check out SKILLSHARE. SKILLSHARE has over 12 bajillion minutes and hours of content where you can learn from several creators all over the internet and learn from them and learn quality stuff that you can learn from schools and things like that. So if you're interested in SKILLSHARE, check the link in the description. I also have, you can get a 2-month free subscription for SKILLSHARE if you use the specific link in the description, and y'all can check that out. Again, subscribe to this channel, hit that bell so you stay notified each time I upload absolutely anything. Check out Apple Black, watch some of my other videos. Hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to check out the colored version on Jolly's channel. Yeah, so I'm Manga, and I'm out.